I didn't give a slap happy about what anybody thought about me. I don't, in my church right now, I tell them the world is my pulpit. If I had a choice of this pulpit or doing what God told me to do in the world, I'd do it. Therefore, my yea, yea, my nay, nay, and after that ain't nothing but hell nay.
Fred Shuttlesworth was a Black Baptist minister who became the the nerve center of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. He was an officer, one of the original officers of King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, but they were more associates and friends in the ministry. It's often said the people around King are referred to as King's lieutenants. Shuttlesworth was never a lieutenant in the sense that he never worked for King, and although he was less known, so that the major demonstrations of 1963, which arguably are the watershed events of the civil rights movement, the first really big victory other than the Montgomery boycott, those 5 weeks of demonstrations in 1963 were based on 7 years of work that Shuttlesworth had done in Birmingham, battling segregation, and of course the Commissioner of Public Safety, who's an icon of Southern resistance to integration, Bull Connor. And so there was a great deal of drama leading up to, in those latter years of the 50s and first couple of years of the 60s. And it was Shuttlesworth who invited, in fact insisted, that King come to Birmingham, and it took a while for King to decide to do that, but he finally did in '63, coming to the same opinion about Birmingham that Shuttlesworth did, that as segregation went in Birmingham, so it would go in the nation, because Birmingham was well known as the most segregated city in the South and the one most committed to maintaining segregation.
You can never whip these birds if you don't keep you and them separate. I found that out in Birmingham. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
In 1958, Connor was doing a number of things. He was in charge of the police department and the fire department. And one of the things he was doing, using the police department to give tickets to people who parked their cars at the mass meetings. In addition to that, he would send the fire department to interrupt the meetings on the pretense of there being fire hazards. And this happened several times during that year. And Shuttlesworth became impatient with this, and after the 4th or 5th time this had happened, and the fire chief came in, they got into a verbal confrontation, Shuttlesworth from the pulpit and the fire chief standing in the middle of the church, imploring him to order the crowd to move to to vacate the building and either end the meeting or take it to another venue. And Shuttlesworth says, you know, if this is Bull just trying to stampede the meeting, we're going to stay here forever. You'll have to drag us out. No, 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 this is for real. This is a real fire hazard. So once again, he gave in and gave the order for the people to vacate. But then he got in one last zinger, and he said, "Chief, you know there ain't no fire in here. The kind of fire we have in here, you can't put out with hoses and axes." And when I read that story, I thought, that's the title.
You know, it's an amazing thing. I did not expect to live to get 40 years old in the Deep South. I expected to get killed. Martin, all of us expected me to get killed in Birmingham, before anybody else.
The Montgomery boycott had just ended, and so Shuttlesworth decided that if bus segregation was unconstitutional in Montgomery, it must be unconstitutional 100 miles north in Birmingham. So he went to the press and he said, now that the decision has been made in Birmingham, or rather in Montgomery, it's time to make these changes in Birmingham. And so we will give the transit company until the day after Christmas to make the changes voluntarily. If that doesn't happen, I and X number of my followers will board the buses and sit in the front on a first-come, first-served basis, beginning on the morning of December 26th. Christmas night, as he lay in his bed about 9:15 at night, a bomb had been placed under his, essentially under the floor in the crawl space of his home, immediately under, as it turned out, Shuttlesworth's bed. And the headboard was essentially 6 to 8 feet away from the bomb, which had 16 or so sticks of dynamite. It blew him up and out of the bed. The mattress somewhat shielded him, and he emerged with a slight bump on the head, but no major injuries. In this occasion, Shuttlesworth found his pants, went out. There was some anger and some weapons being brandished. He gave a short nonviolence speech saying this is not the time or place for that, and we will, you know, the Klan planted that bomb, and that bomb had my name on it, but God erased it off, and so He has saved me to lead the fight. And so the next day, in spite of the bombing, in spite of the destruction of the front side of his house, and also some damage to the church because the parsonage and the church were immediately adjacent to each other. He led the first integrated effort to ride the buses. 22 people, not including Shuttlesworth himself, were arrested that day. His being saved from that experience convinced the working class followers of Shuttlesworth, poor and working class, not middle class black families. This was a poorer church. But not just the church. By then, he had founded an organization called the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, which was about 6 months old at the time of the bombing. I interviewed one of the women at the church. She was in her teens when the bombing took place and was gathered outside the home. And she told me if we had actually been there to observe Jesus walking on water, we would not have been any more reverent than we were when we saw Shuttlesworth come out of that house alive.
I always try when I'm talking to people, never to get people thinking I'm any more or I'm not a Superman. I didn't learn how to trust God. I guess I have to use that word again.